We've made all our blocks, but now what we want to do is we want to join them together with some triangles on point. I think this picture may be a little bit easier. I've got little triangles in my four corners, and then I have bigger triangles on the outside edges. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I have a straight of grain on the outside edge. So if I look at this, I've got a square, and this is what I'm going to be cutting for my four corner setting triangles. I have a square of fabric. If I cut it diagonally, I have two bias edges here. So let's cut. I have a square, and I'm going to cut it once diagonally. This will go on to, this edge here will go on to one of my outside edge of one of my blocks. It's a bias edge. But here I need some other triangles, but that diagonal line or that long edge would be a bias. If I was to put it on the quilt, it would be a bias, and it would stretch my outside edge of my quilt. So to keep things contained, what I would do is cut twice on the diagonal. That way, my inside edges are bias, but when I sew it together with my blocks, the outside edge is a nice long straight of grain. So what I need to do is I need to take my corner setting triangles or squares. I've cut them corners triangles. I've cut 9.5-inch squares. My bias is on the diagonal or on that long side, but that's what I'm going to put against a block. So I will be sewing that to one of my blocks. There we go. Now you can see. And this outside edge here would be nice and firm because I've got my crosswise and my lengthwise grain. It's much more stable than my bias. So I cut my corner squares. Corner setting triangles for my quilt. Depending on the quilt size, they all may be one color. They may be a square each to create two triangles of the two different fabrics. Then we get to our side setting triangles. Now remember, those are cut in half twice on the diagonal. So my instructions tell me I need a strip that's 18.5 inches wide. And for my size pattern, I'm doing the lap size or the twin size quilt. I need two triangles of each. Two squares of each cut into diagonals. So I'm going to cut everything all at once. I cut as much as I can at once simply because I want to make sure that they're all the same size. I'm going to trim off the selvage. Let's see, is that going to get it all? I'm going to trim off the selvage. So I need to cut two squares each of my light and my dark, my blue and my green fabric. They need to be 18.5 inches wide. So here's what I'm going to do. Because I know my mat here measures 18. If I take my ruler, it measures 19, the mat measures 19 from edge to edge. So I can get my 18.5 out of there. So here's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to pull this cut edge right over so it's even with my mat. Now, if I had a bigger mat, it'd be a lot easier, but we don't all have the bigger mats. I'm going to find the 18.5 marking right here on my ruler. I'm looking at the black boxes with the numbers, and I'm going up 1/2 inch. And what I'm going to do is just line up the edge. Let me move this camera a little bit so you can see there. So I'm going to line this edge up with the 18.5, and then over here I'm going to make a little snip. Then I'm going to slide up to the top edge, find my 18.5 marking, sorry for the glare, up there, and make a little snip. Then what I'm going to do is slide my ruler over to my 2 snips and cut. So now I have 2 and 2 squares. So before I take them apart, I want to cut them on the diagonal twice. Now, if I take my ruler, it's not quite long enough. So here's what I do. I will take a second ruler, doesn't really matter how long, and I will line one up to the corner up here, and then I will line up the other ruler to the corner here. And with a little bit of manipulating, by pushing these 2 rulers together, I can get my quarter or my diagonal. So I'm going to pull one away because I'm a left-handed cutter. I'm going to cut left-handed only halfway. Then I'm going to pull this in, slide my cutting ruler up, pull away my measuring ruler, and continue cutting. Then I'm going to rotate everything. So let's see how I do here. I'm going to line up my bottom right corner. I'm going to line up my top left corner. There we go. I'm going to remove my measuring ruler, cut as far as I can, slide my measuring ruler back into place, move my measuring ruler away, and trim. So I have very, very easily and efficiently cut my 4 triangles for my side settings, and this time that bias edge is on the inside. So when I go to sew my blocks in, I am matching up straight of grain with a bias edge, but this outside edge of my quilt is going to be nice and firm. I won't have to worry about any stretching or anything, and my quilt will be perfect when it's done. So next up, we're going to talk about layout, how to efficiently lay out your quilt, and then we'll start piecing our quilt together.